Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad actually had a tweet that I like. I don't usually like his tweets, but this one I definitely like. I think he had a lot of foresight in it. I'm going to cover that. But first, let me cover some really interesting facts here. So right now, the stock market, a lot of people are concerned about the stock market. It has surged 40% over the last 9 months. Where have we seen this before? This happened in 1929. Remember 1929, the big crash, 1987, and 1999. And after that, it was followed by a massive crash. Massive, I guess. I guess it's not very massive compared to what we experience in crypto land. But I'm going to discuss why I think that this time might be a little bit different. Why is that? First off, because they are printing more currency than ever before. And also, the banks pretty much papered over what we had, what we should have suffered in 2007 and 2008 during the credit crisis, the great financial crisis, during their mortgage-backed securities, their subprime mortgages, their subprime loans, stuff like that. They papered over it by printing crap tons of currency. And so with that said, it's just there's no risk anymore for the stock market. Essentially, it's everyone for themselves, and I don't expect there to be a massive crash like we've seen in the past. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my thought. Let me know below what you think. Also, we have U.S. banks' unrealized losses at $512.9 billion in Q2 2024. That's a lot. Q2 marks the 11th straight quarter of unrealized losses on investment securities for banks, a streak never seen before. The number of banks on the FDIC problem bank list increased to 66 and represents 1.5% in total. So it kind of reminds me of back in 1907 when JP Morgan made some FUD against his competitor banks, and then that bank kind of fell, and JP Morgan came out as a savior and bought that bank and consolidated a bunch of banks. So I see this happening right now, whereas you have the largest banks in the world, which actually control the Federal Reserve, are shareholders of the Federal Reserve, and those are the banks that will be buying the crap out of all these smaller banks. And it's going to be right on time for a central bank digital currency, so get ready. But first, check out this chart, really interesting. I think you might enjoy it, at least seeing it for yourself. Yes, this is real. This is really happening right now to these smaller banks. Okay, moving on. Let's move on to the Federal Reserve. Back to them again. The Federal Reserve requirements. This was announced March 15th, 2020. I know a lot of people have no idea. I'd say 99.9% of people around the world have no idea this actually happened. But the board reduced reserve requirement ratios to 0% effective March 26, 2020. So the action eliminated reserve requirements for all depository institutions. So it's just everyone for themselves at this point. And this leads me on to Robert Kiyosaki, who I think understands what is happening right now. He says, now keep in mind, I am apolitical. I don't care any side, okay? It doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat. I couldn't care less what goon gets into office. But first, let's read this. While I want Trump to win, it really makes little difference if Trump or Harris wins. The real problem is $35 trillion in U.S. debt. That is the real problem. Neither Trump nor Kamala can solve. Absolutely, because Trump, during his reign, he put on $6.2 trillion on the national debt. Nobody talks about that one. Don't get me started on Biden. He's done an even better job at increasing that debt, okay? But as stated earlier, tweets that the U.S. debt goes up by $1.1 trillion every 100 days. And if you've been following me for any amount of time, you will know that I say this constantly. It doesn't matter. The Federal Reserve is going to print ridiculous amounts of currency like you've never seen before, regardless of which monkey gets into office, okay? So he also goes on, as stated in earlier tweets, if you spend $1 a minute, it would take 31,688 years to spend $1 trillion. Simply said, we are effed. That's what he says. The dollar is trash. Stop saving dollars, fake money, and start saving gold, silver, and Bitcoin, real money. I agree with you, Robert. That's a good tweet. Okay, to finalize this, let's cover Reginald McKenna, who was a British banker back in the early 1900s. Okay, he says, this is really interesting, they who control the credit of a nation direct the policy of governments and hold in the hollow of their hands the destiny of the people. What does that mean? It means that whoever controls the credit of the nation controls the nation, which is essentially what the Federal Reserve does. They control the debt of the nation. So it doesn't matter who gets elected. That Federal Reserve is still going to be in there, and they're going to print and print and print. And that is why we started this channel, is to save you guys from inflation. You have not seen anything yet when it comes down to inflation. That is why we tell people to buy Bitcoin. That's why we tell people to buy Monero. That's why Heidi just did a video on Monero. Check that brilliant video out. And also check out learningcrypto.com, where you get to see my trade alerts, portfolio updates, and you get to see when we are buying and when we are going to be selling. Yes, we are going to be selling temporarily to buy back lower, and you're going to hear all that at learningcrypto.com. Anyways, talk to you soon.